Welcome back to Draw New Stories, Season 5, Episode 8. Now, this is the only podcast where the interviews are reimagined into illustrations. If you want to see them, catch them on Instagram, catch them on YouTube, reach out, I'll DM them to you if you want, and you can check them out. You can also get any merch you want on TeePublic. On this episode, it's a little bit different. Ty King, from 2 episodes ago, is the podcast master down in Arkansas. He teaches, runs events and everything. His event, which happened a couple of weeks ago at this point, it's called Arkfest, and he asked me to come live stream in and interview people and do a live sketch, which was super fun. I got to meet 5 amazing people. On this episode, part 1, there is 3 amazing people. We have Charlie, Bird, and Diego. Charlie has her own podcast, Saturday Night Sleepover, where they talk about pop culture references and stuff like that, more to be sort of like people hanging out. Bird has his own 2 podcasts, but the really amazing thing with him, he's survived life-threatening cancer, and he really wants to spread the amazing word about how good life is. And then Diego, he was there supporting his wife, who has a podcast called The Podcast Space, about podcasts and marketing and strategy for them. But he's also super interesting because he has a job at Walmart where he does UX design. And a lot of people are confused between UX, UI. And we chat about the ins and outs of that within the digital realm versus the real world, and then trying to accommodate for everybody. But we also chat about his love for woodworking and pizza. It's really, really fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you really want to check any of this stuff out, you know where to find it. And let's get into it. Booshk!
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
What is your name?
My name's Charlie.
Charlie, lovely to meet you. So, do you know what you're sitting down for?
Somewhat. Ty pulled me aside and said, go put some headphones on, and this guy draws pictures when he gets to know you. So.
All right. So, my name's Maddie, and I've got a podcast called Drawn to Your Story, and I interview people, and I do drawings of the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So normally I ask 10 questions, but what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to ask 3 questions.
Okay.
When I ask them, I'd love for you to answer why that is the reason,
okay,
or why that is the answer. And then just tell me about yourself. Have you got a podcast or anything like that? So, okay, here are the 3 questions. What is your favorite food? What is your favorite animal? And what do you do for fun?
Okay. My favorite food is potatoes because they're versatile and my husband makes them really well. Yeah. And also, like, they're good with everything. You could have French fries, you can have mashed potatoes, you can have soup, you can have anything. Potatoes are good everywhere.
I love them. I love them as well. Except baked potatoes. I feel like that's like the worst way you could do them.
It is a lower level way, but it is still delicious.
I don't know. I'm not buying in.
Okay.
Mashed potatoes all day.
Yes. So that's my favorite food. And then what's the second question?
What's your favorite animal?
Favorite animal is a moose because they're majestic.
Yeah. I have a best friend. His nickname is Moose.
Oh, I love that as a nickname. That's really cool.
Yeah. He's a really fun dude. And what do you do for fun?
For fun, I podcast. And that's kind of my hobby. And also, I like camping and being outside. And sorry, I just got distracted because it got really loud in here.
That's totally fine. That's fine. So, you like the podcast. Why I start drawing? Why don't you tell me about your podcast?
So my podcast, I started it because I'm good at 2 things, telling stories and making friends. So that's what I do on my podcast. It's in a world where it's hard to make friends as an adult. This is a friendship that you can participate in while you fold your clothes.
Oh, okay. So tell me how people participate in this friendship.
What I do is I call my friend on the podcast and we talk about like whatever we're watching on Netflix or like different TV funny things our kids or husbands do and stuff like that. But studies have shown that when you're consuming media, your brain does the same thing as. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. It's hard. It's really loud in here.
Fine. I can hear you perfectly. You're doing great.
Thank you. So studies have shown that your brain does the same thing when you consume media, when you're connecting with another human. So it's a parasocial relationship, so it's a one-way relationship. So people are, while they're listening to my podcast and having a conversation with me and my friend, they are still like being able to have a friendship and like establish those like neural connections.
So, how long have you been doing that for?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. Will you ask me again?
Oh, my bad. My mic's a little bit further away. How long have you been doing that for?
I've been doing it since December of 2022.
Oh, wow. So you've got a few years under your belt?
Yes.
How many friends have you made doing it?
I have made so many friends, especially like one of my closest friends because I moved to Arkansas in 2022. And so,
Are you in Fayetteville in particular?
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Funny enough, the only place I've ever traveled in Arkansas is Fayetteville. And I randomly was there earlier this year.
What did you do in Fayetteville?
My cousin was down there. Have you heard of the Spiro Clinic?
No, I haven't.
It's like the only clinic in the world that does this, like, certain type of... It's almost like physical therapy, but this all-body thing. My cousin had this weird auto-body-brain thing that was like, felt like his leg was always in pain.
Oh.
He did this like 4-month thing there. So I went down there and hung out with him for like a week straight and just sort of like took him back and forth from
the
clinic
clinic,
and stuff like
yeah.
that. And I just loved it. I was hanging around there. I was like playing pickleball down there.
Yeah.
I was walking around the town the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize, like, obviously, I thought it was going to be a lot more, how to put it, redneck. I thought I was going to have a lot more sort of that. But everyone I met around there was like, oh, just don't go out of the northwest of here.
I'm not from Arkansas, and I've only have like minimal connections with Central Arkansas, but Northwest Arkansas has. I've been to Central Arkansas. It's very different than Northwest Arkansas, and it has its own charm and different things. But I really enjoy Northwest Arkansas because I feel like there's 4 or 5 different cities in the area that like they all have different vibes, and so you can experience something different every weekend if you want.
Yeah, it seemed really cool. I really enjoyed it. It seemed really cool. I really enjoyed it. Sorry, I am far away.
No,
from the
you're
mic
okay.
while
You're
I'm
okay. You're okay.
I'm going to turn my thing so I can chat a bit more. How has the podcast been going?
It's been going really lovely. At first, like when I first started, it was a lot of stress because I don't batch any episodes or anything. I don't edit or anything like that. Because I want to do like genuine connection with my friend. And so I leave in all the embarrassing things. And so at first when I started, there were a lot of embarrassing things and I had a hard time finding time for it. But then it's like kind of like going to the gym, like where once you get like comfortable with it, then it starts like becoming easier and easier. And then you don't know what you would do without it. And so I'm now in that place where I'm like, this is like, I love it. And this is, I don't know what I'd do without it.
I really like that take on it. I struggled as well, and I still struggle now where I'm like, oh man, like I got to get in front of the camera, or the self-promotion part of it once it's done. Mm-hmm. That's really hard for me as well, like getting in front of the camera. But there is this sense of accomplishment when you like look back. I just published my 50th episode, and I was like, oh dang, I did something that was uncomfortable for 50 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like your aspect too of where it's like you are doing an art thing and like combining it with a podcast. That's a take I haven't seen before. That's really cool.
Oh, thank you very much. Please tell more people because not many people know.
Well, you can come on my show if you want.
Oh, yeah, please. Let's connect. Like this sketch will be yours, so I'll send it to you.
Okay.
So I'm just sort of getting the rough of the sketch now. It's really just a sketch, just to sort of be playful and in the conversation. Mm-hmm. and so I don't know how a moose's hoof looks or anything like that, so your moose might be a little bit different than
That's okay.
it's all meant to be just fun. What I normally do is, so I just had Ty on here before for the last episode, and so I go back after the episode, and it's more like not a caricature, it's more like a storycature, and like, hey, what did I like take away from this? And I sort of like blend it in with what they do, stuff that I find interesting within there, and I sort of just spit it all together, and something random comes out.
Very cool.
So it's not as much just sketching. Well, you don't see as much sketching.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah. Where were you before Arkansas?
I've lived all over America. I grew up in Virginia, and then I went to college in Hawaii, and I lived in Colorado, and
how come you left Hawaii?
The price of milk and cheese, man. It's too much. Also, I graduated college, and my parents had moved to Washington, D.C., and so I thought I would go try my hand at living and working in Washington, D.C., and so that was my next life choice whenever I did that. And then on a whim, I decided to move to the middle of nowhere in Utah, and then my husband's from Utah, and then I fell in love with him and got stuck there. And then I stayed there for 10 years and then moved here in 2022. So from 2012 to 2022, I lived in Utah.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
My wife and I consider moving to Hawaii all the time.
My sister lives there right now.
What island?
She lives on Big Island. And I call her my doctor sister. She lives on like 40 acres on Big Island, Hawaii, and has like a ranch and all this stuff. She's and a million kids and doesn't homeschool them, but like make sure that they have a really good education, and they're like learning about farm things and making their own food and stuff. It's like crazy. I don't know how she does it all.
Wow. I don't know if I'm that committed to like being rural, but I'm very committed to being out there.
Have you been to Hawaii before?
I've been to Kauai and I've been to Kona, and I've stopped off in, is it Maui?
Okay, yeah.
For a second. I grew up surfing in Australia a bunch, so I almost know Hawaii without knowing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so I ran into like a pro surfer when I was there, and everyone else is just sort of walking by them, maybe because they know him or whatever, but I was like, oh, hey, and I just started foaming at the mouth, like, oh man, and I didn't take it. I was like, whoa, hey, and so I chatted to him for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand that feeling, because I lived on North Shore, Oahu, whenever I lived there, and so the pipeline is just right there.
Oh my gosh, that's my dream. I want to go surf it in summer and then say that I surfed it and be like, yeah, I surfed it.
I surfed pipeline. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like on a longboard, like.
I've been surfing in Haleiwa before, but not pipeline. That is too scary.
So over on that island, is there like lots of chill waves where you can go surf?
Yeah, there's lots of. I mean, it's an island, so every side of the ocean has different kinds of waves, every side of the island has different kinds of waves, and so you can just surf anywhere. I went on baby waves. I'm not an experienced surfer. One time I got in a surf accident, and I worked at a restaurant, and I had have you ever seen when somebody bruises their eye so bad that they bust a blood vessel in their eye? Well, that happened to me because I smacked down into the sand, and then my face scared everybody at the restaurant that I worked at, so I had to work in the back for like 2 months.
Oh, yeah, I've got many funny surfing stories. Ones where I've been smashed so bad that I shat my wetsuit in a wave.
Poor thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was a really silly story. But this, the waves were huge, and I was definitely out. I just didn't have the skill to be out there. But anyway, the other part is I used to go surfing, and I dove under a wave, and I hit the sandbank, and I grinded off the top part of my nose.
My gosh.
This is when I was like 17.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had to go to school, and everyone's like, what the heck happened to your nose? And I think I'd make up stories to try and be cool or whatever.
I mean, the story itself was already pretty cool, but a little embarrassing.
Not when you are like 17 and everyone else surfs, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I get
everyone
that.
Everyone else is like, you idiot. What'd you do that for?
I think Ty told me you're in Washington now.
I am in Washington State, yep.
I have some friends that live there. My parents live in Oregon now.
Oh,
so neighbors,
Whereabouts
yeah.
in Washington do your friends live?
I have a friend that she lives outside of Seattle, and I think it's called Bellevue.
Oh, I'm right next door to it.
Yeah.
I'm in Kirkland.
Oh, great. Awesome. Yeah, I've visited her a couple of times. I came to her wedding, and also like one time whenever because like there's direct flights to Seattle from Hawaii.
Yep.
One time I had like a 10-hour layover, but it was like from 12 o'clock at night until like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I like flew in, and I was like, come pick me up from the airport, and we just like hung out all night in Seattle. And then her parents were like, they didn't believe that I was a real person because they didn't meet me, and she was living with her parents at the time. And so when I finally came to her wedding, they were like, oh my gosh, you do have a real friend. And she really does exist.
That is funny. You're like the secret friend.
Yeah.
And they just were like, oh, our daughter's out there doing crack in the middle of Seattle at 12 o'clock at night.
I guess so.
So, Charlie, I've created your little sketch of a moose camping, doing a little podcast. I don't know if you can see that. If you want to, you can. I would love to be able to send this to you via email or anything
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah. There you go. Saturday Night
Awesome.
Sleepover is my podcast. And it looks like this.
That is so fun.
With my face.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll send it. I'm going to actually make this a podcast for myself with everyone. So what I'll do is I'll email you, and I'll also get your logo, and I'll pop it in so people can see it.
Thank you so much.
No, of course. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it was lovely to meet you. I'll look for you in my
Lovely to meet
inbox.
you, Charlie.
Hello.
How you going, mate? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. What's your name?
My name is Bird.
How you going, Bird?
B-I-R-D.
Oh, that's sick. I got a boring name. It's Matthew. So I go by Matty, though.
Yeah, that's
Do
all
you know
right.
what you're sitting down for?
A little bit, yeah. You're going to be drawing my personality based on this little conversation?
Yeah, a little bit. So I have a podcast called Drawn to Your Story, and I usually interview someone, do an illustration based on that whole conversation. So what we're going to do is have a little mini conversation. I'm going to ask you 3 questions to sort of get us rolling, and then I will create an illustration. Does that sound good?
Sure.
All right. What's your and you can give me a sort of reason why when I ask these questions if you want to fill it out. What's your favorite food?
Curry.
Curry.
Curry,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
I love Thai food. I like to go out and try all the yellow curry at all the Thai restaurants and figure out which is the best in the area based on their yellow curry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. What is your favorite animal?
I would say monkeys.
Monkeys.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you do for fun?
Probably my favorite thing would be camping.
Camping.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you doing here at Arkfest? Are you a podcaster? You learning about it? How are you going about this?
I have a couple podcasts that I've been doing for about a year and a half, kind of as just a little creative project of my own. And I think that a couple reasons I came were because I have a technical issue that I'm trying to figure out, and I have marketing issues that I would like to understand. I kind of have been marketing my podcast to friends on social media and whatever, but I really want to take the next step and try to grow them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you want? I actually agree with that because I can get stuck in that same sort of situation.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to tell us about what your podcast is about, or what they are about?
Sure. I started my first one year and a half ago. It's called Get Up and Walk. It's just I was diagnosed with terminal cancer in August of 22.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and so that began, as you can imagine, a journey of figuring out what all of that meant. Going from the start of thinking that it meant I was just going to be gone, and I didn't feel ready to be. But then over time, I've learned a lot about cancer and maybe why I got cancer and things I can do to help myself heal. And I've kind of found a lot of other people who have healed from cancer. So the podcast is just all about that journey. I started it pretty early on when I was still really struggling with answers, and have just kind of been updating it ever since. The second podcast is called Be the Tree, and it is more of a spiritual philosophy that kind of talks about spiritual growth from kind of like a seed phase up into a sprout phase, and then like a sapling phase, and then finally becoming a tree and sinking your roots down deep and getting those branches out wide, radical acceptance and things like that, kind of being the premise of any kind of spiritual path.
So, a couple of questions. You said that it was terminal cancer. Have you moved past that? Have you beaten the odds, or are we still?
I think
on
so
that
far.
path?
I think so far I have been beating the odds.
Hey, well
yeah,
done.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. I did. My journey began with seeking conventional treatment. I was the type of guy who had never really been to the doctor. I always lived a very healthy life. I thought I did my best to not get cancer, and when I got it bad. You know, it was spread to 15 different places in my bones and my body.
Ugh.
Yeah, so I was very worried, and my urologist said, "Bro, we're just going to try to save your life. You need to get to the oncologist right now." And so they sent me. So I went there, not having much experience with the medical structure or whatever.
Yep.
And I just I didn't want to go, but it's like it's like God sort of intervened and literally started speaking to me. I felt I was coming across all kinds of what I would call synchronicities and information, quotes and things on Instagram. Is like everything was speaking to me and saying, listen, you might think you're going to die, but that's not your story. I want to heal you, and I want you to tell your story. And so I started to believe that. But my journey did include going and getting some conventional treatment. I got on a trial for about a year and a half, and I actually walked away from that in August. And so I've been completely off medications for just a few months here. So it's kind of a brand new uncertainty in this territory of going at it without the medications. But my body told me it's time to quit that because I was having issues with the medications and stuff. So,
you don't have to answer this question, but before the cancer and after, while you're in this, fingers crossed, we keep going.
Yeah.
Have you had a different perspective on life? So I was in a serious car accident years and years ago, and I get asked this question quite a lot when people find out. They're like, "Oh my gosh, what were you like?" And for me personally, I sometimes forget. I've got this huge scar that goes across the top of my head. I've had reconstruction surgery where they put my head forward, but I forget the scar's not there's not a permanent pain. or a permanent thing. So how was your perspective before and after, or before and while you moved forward?
Yeah, I was, even before I was kind of altruistic, and I felt like I had a purpose in this life and I wanted to accomplish, meaning and doing something for the world. But now it's become so much more real. It's like I connect with people on a much more personal. I think love, like, genuinely has entered into the picture, and I just realized that life is short. This is all we get, and
I think about that in summers. I'm like, okay, so I've literally got, like, if I live a great life, I've got 40 summers left.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's nothing.
Right, it's nothing. So it's just kind of put a spark in me to want to do more, but like genuine things, not things just to serve myself. But, with cancer now, obviously there's a whole group of people who are facing the same kind of uncertainty that I was. And sometimes the medical community doesn't give you a lot of hope. They pretty much told me that I would be on these medications the rest of my life until I didn't have one anymore, and there would be no cure. Their remission was semantics. There's just no good news. But so I kind of had to. I guess there came this moment where I read a verse in the Bible that said, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And I was like, that is so true. With man, they're not even saying it's possible. So I think I'm going to go with God and see how this goes.
I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in that stuff, but I'm always stoked, like, people, you do you. Like, as long as, like, no one's hurting each other, do you. So if that's your path that you need to take, do you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And even if it comes down to there is no God and this is just a placebo thing, that alone has hope and healing. People can be literally healed if they believe that the air is going to heal them. It happens. Yeah. So I don't know. I think faith is a big component of healing. Faith in something. I personally have had experiences that I believe were God experiences, so that's why I feel a lot of confidence in that area. But yeah, like you said, we're all on a journey. I respect people where they are, and I think that's come about as a result of cancer. Also, just realizing we're all human. We're all on this journey. Nobody knows the answers necessarily. So let's treat each other well.
I fully agree. I'm like, I can't believe anyone... as long as you are not hurting anyone, then I can't believe anyone has a say in anyone else's life.
Right.
Like, at all.
No.
Like, I'm atheist, but if you want to believe in a God, why can I? That stop me, but your good should not stop me from doing what my life is, as long as I'm not hurting anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever listen to an artist called Ben Harper?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the one, Burn One Down?
Maybe if I heard it. I don't know the title, but... Mm-hmm.
So if you ever get a chance, look it up. And it literally has one of my favorite lines in it. It's like, if you're not causing anyone no harm, you're all right with me. If I'm not causing any harm, it shouldn't bother you.
Right, yeah.
Something. And I've lived by that for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I think religion can be harmful. That's why a lot of people are really resistant toward it, and I have that resistance inside me too. Sometimes I struggle with religion, but I do appreciate the community that can be found there, and sometimes the inspiration, and that's been another journey, a separate one.
So with the podcasts, how have they been going for you?
I've enjoyed doing them. I've had probably 12 episodes in each one, and maybe like 800 listens or whatever. So they're not like, they haven't really taken off, but I would love my story to get out there. I'm curious about maybe, someday I'd like to write books, and I think that one thing I learned along the way is that publishers are looking for people who have a following. And I thought, well, maybe somewhere down the road, this podcast will become more of a following, and that can lead to book publishing and things like that.
Yeah, it's sort of like what's first, right? The chicken or the egg? Like, oh, do I have the book? Then people like read that and go, oh, or do they have the podcast and I build that up? Yeah, I'm sort of in the same thing with you where I've illustrated a bunch of children's books. I've created a bunch of other little side projects and businesses, and the podcast, I'm like, well, do I do the podcast that draws them all to that? Or do I build the podcast up and then that stuff was already there, so it's going to...
Right.
I've already sowed those seeds.
Yeah.
Ooh, one point I forgot to say, as there was a saying, because you mentioned about the trees and the planting. I just came across this saying that said, the person said, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Right.
And now.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that really stuck with me. Because I was like, far out, I feel like I'm late to the podcast game. Everyone's got one.
Yeah.
So.
Sure. Yeah, same.
Yeah,
but,
on that.
yeah.
So, if you would like, there's a little chat feature on the side. If you put in your email and also, I'm going to create this and make a podcast out of this.
Okay.
And I would love to put your logos for your podcast and the links to your podcast in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can just shoot me your email and your name there, and then I'll get that done. So was your name Bird from birth, or is this a self-given name?
Not necessarily self-given. It was a name I thought when I kind of really went all in on my spiritual journey. It was like the information I was getting is you're going to have a new name because this is like a new way of life for you. Oh, and I was like, okay. So I was open to it, but I didn't know when or how or what it would be until the day it finally was there. And it just came to me on like a playing card, strangely. Oh, wow. And the moment I saw it, I was like, that's my name, Bird. It's like, oh no. But it really suited me. And I started adopting it. And about a year later, I actually made it legal. And I've just, that's been several years now. That's my name. It's on my ID and everything else.
Oh, that's awesome. So
yeah.
What was it like transitioning from with your friends and family? Were they like, oh yeah, that's just going to be him, like that's his personality? Or were they like, come on, Steve, like let's get...
Friends were all right. Friends were cool with it. I had just moved to Chattanooga downtown, so I was doing a lot of networking at the time. I think I met like 200 people that year. And so it was really a time of just introducing myself as Bird, and people didn't know any different.
Yep.
So it was kind of a unique timing also. My family obviously was the harder part, but it just took a while, and I was just patient with them. I didn't expect them, I didn't get mad when they called me Justin,
Yeah.
And then now everybody's pretty much caught on.
Actually, like, because Australians have so many nicknames, like everybody has a nickname. So I imagine most people, if they were like, oh, that's just his nickname, and then wouldn't even think anything of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You seem like such a patient dude.
I try.
Well, it seems pretty chilled for me. For everything you've been going through, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. I'm not an expert at it. It's just been my journey, and mostly I feel like I've just been hanging on to what is, and sometimes it just feels like, the best I can say is it just feels like there is a God intervening, and that there seems to be a plan for all of this, and it's just going to work out. So I walk with hope, and I share my story, and yeah, it's pretty simple.
I'm so stoked for you, Bird, that you have such a positive outlook on something that, like I could see myself being bitter, being like, man, I've lived a healthy life. I didn't smoke. I didn't
Right.
do this. I didn't do whatever. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, I get this. And I would have been like, fuck me. Like, come on. Like, fucking hell. Like,
I was
angry at
that
the
way
world.
at first. Yeah, I was that
Yeah.
way. But I realized there's more to it. I'd been vegan since I was like 19.
Oh, wow.
Mostly because I thought it was like an anti-cancer diet, which it is. It can be. But along with that, stress plays probably a bigger role than a lot of people
Yeah.
realize. So that's something I learned along the way, is that stress management is just as important, if not more important, than diet. And so, I work hard on stress reduction through exercise and doing things I love to do that I call my playlist,
Yep.
stuff like
Do you
that.
do a lot of meditating?
A lot of meditating, yeah. A lot of visualization, yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Bird, I have your illustration done of your Thai
Yeah,
curry with
okay.
your podcast.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
I'll send you this through the email here.
Okay.
And I'll share. When I send the email, I'll get a bunch of your like logos and stuff, and
Sure.
I'll pop them in the episode.
Okay, awesome.
I hope you like it, and I hope you have a good rest of the day, and I hope you get your technical problem solved.
I'm sure it'll come along. Appreciate it. Nice meeting
Thanks
you,
so
Maddie.
much, Bird, and congratulations on fighting the battle.
Yeah, appreciate it.
No
Thanks.
worries, mate. I hope you have a great day.
You too. See ya.
See ya.
Good to go. Hello, hello.
Hey, mate, how are you?
I am good. How about you? Oh, I should look at you over there, I guess.
You're good, mate. You're good. What's your name?
Diego.
Diego.
That's
Awesome.
right.
Nice to meet you. I'm Maddie.
Hey, Matty. How are you doing?
Do you know what you're sitting down for?
A little bit. Actually, Ty, we were having a drink last night, and he was telling us about you and your podcast and what you do. And so there you go.
Oh, awesome. So you know a little bit. So
Yes.
to get the conversation rolling, I'm going to ask you 3 questions and then answer it. And then we can chat about why you're there and all that sort of stuff as well.
Sure.
Okay? So what is your favorite food?
Ooh, favorite food. Well, there's 2 things that came to mind right away, completely different. First, I thought about chicken tikka masala, probably because I have a
Okay.
craving for it right now. Although it's not something I would eat every day. I think the second image that came to my mind that I could eat every day, if there was only one food I could eat, it would be pizza.
Pizza. Yeah, I feel like that's a big one for everybody.
Right.
For most people.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can do pizzas, so many variation. I've even
Yep.
one of my latest favorite pizza is banh mi pizza. I never heard
Oh.
of that before. I never thought there could be a banh mi pizza. And then I
Yeah.
tried it and it was wonderful. I was like, oh wow. So, it doesn't have to be just traditional red sauce and pepperoni on it. It could be very
Yeah,
original.
yeah. What is your favorite animal?
Dog. I would be a
Dog?
dog person.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you like to do for fun?
For fun, so I'd say right now one of my big hobby is woodworking.
Woodworking?
Yes,
All right.
that's something that I picked during COVID.
What type of woodworking are you doing? Like, are you doing fine cabinetry? Are you building like a doghouse? Bird houses?
Really, it started with like being a homeowner, so trying to do some DIY things. So it's been
Yep.
mostly like tending to the need of the house. So my first thing was actually doing a desk for my wife. And,
Oh, wow.
And actually, yeah, that was really like kind of the product that gave me a lot of confidence. Maybe one of the thing that I'm the most proud of, just because I knew nothing about woodworking. I got into it like I had no idea what I was throwing myself into, and when I saw the pieces being done, I was like, you know what? I would have settled for just like something that doesn't rock, that's just stable enough, that's not wobbly, and it actually was looking good. I mean, it didn't came from my mind. I find some nice design on YouTube and follow the instructions, but I was mind-boggling to think that I could make something out of my hand.
What's your favorite tool to use?
My favorite tool, the first tool was a table saw. It's great. It's versatile, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite one. Favorite? Um, I'd say the plunge saw is probably my favorite one. It's not crazy. It's not super versatile. You don't make a lot out of it. It's just to break down big planks and pieces of wood. But it's so smooth and easy to use. I just love using it for that reason.
Okay, cool. I love that. So why are you there at Arkfest?
I'm supporting my wife. We recently moved to Arkansas because of me, because of work. But she's a podcast strategist. She has her own business. So as we moved to this new area, she connected with a few people in the podcast industry around here, and she met Ty before at some conferences. So she kind of made contacts, and there you go. Like we've been 3 weeks in Arkansas, and she came to Arkast. Like the timing couldn't be perfect, and she is involved in the festivities. She was giving awards. On Thursday, I think Thursday evening, they had the award event. So she was giving award away, and today she's in a panel. She's going to be a judge. Like hearing the pitch of people who have I think they have a podcast, or they want to launch a podcast on NPR or something like this. So,
What's her podcast about?
So her podcast is called The Podcast Space. It's a podcast about podcasting. So it's a podcast for either podcasters or for wannabe podcasters. So she's kind of really like breaking it down, the steps of what should be the first step if you want to launch your podcast. How do you kind of create a marketing around it? How do you make it fit your marketing kind of structure if you have an existing one? So she's really like kind of breaking it down for people, making it simple. Really like the goal is like for people who have something to say, who might be intimidating by the format in the medium. She tried to make it simple for them and get them on their merry way to make sure their message gets heard.
Oh, cool. Did you? So you've only been in Arkansas 3 weeks. Are you downtown, like Fayetteville?
No, we're actually in Bentonville ourselves.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little north. It's about like 20 miles north of Fayetteville.
Is that out near like Cabela's and stuff like that?
Cabello, I don't know. Doesn't ring a bell. So again, pretty new to the area. So I'm not sure.
I was down there in February this year. So I was driving my cousin around it quite a bit, and sort of got to sort of like suss it out a bit.
Sure.
It's a beautiful place down there.
It is. We were in Dallas, Texas before, so I would say like it's a bit of an improvement. We spent 8 years in Dallas. I was great. But it's just like there's so much more that Arkansas and Northwest Arkansas in particular offers for outdoor activities. I keep telling that to people as I explain why we moved and all that stuff. But recently I realized like living in the heat of North Texas, it's like at some point you start feeling you spend your summer as if you were a goldfish in an aquarium.
Oh, yeah.
You see the nice weather out there, the blue sky and the sun, but you can only enjoy it from the air condition inside of your house, inside your car, inside a restaurant or bar. And here there's so much more you can do. Like there's, as I said, there's great scenery, great landscapes, there's a great network of trails. So I'm really like looking forward getting back on the bike or putting my running shoes or just going for a walk outside. It's I think it's going to be great. So looking forward to it.
What do you do for work that made you go to Fayetteville or like down to Arkansas instead? Sorry.
Right. So one of the big business around here is Walmart. So that's who I work for. So initially, when I worked for them, I joined 3 years ago. Again, I was back in Dallas, so I was hired as a remote employee. I do UX research. So I'm part of the design organization, and I speak to customers, ask about their experience on the Walmart website or the Walmart app. and trying to see what are their experiences, what sort of frustration they get, what are their pain points, and feed that back to the team to have them make any sort of improvement or create a new feature or those sort of things. So Walmart recently decided that remote working wasn't the way to go anymore. So we've all been called back to the office, and that's what kind of engineered this whole move to Bentonville, Arkansas.
So for people out there, so I used to work as a web designer for Nintendo.
Right.
And
awesome.
Whenever you do web design, you have to do UX design as well,
right.
and sort of like you're throwing in stuff. But can you explain to people the UX research side of it a little bit? Because I think when people hear of like UX or UI or that, there's like this weird overlap of them not knowing what it is and how you get people to implement that. I think if you can give an example.
Sure. I think the way I would say is like, it's like creating anything without necessarily instructions. I think we all think that, when we come up with an idea, because we had kind of this entire process of creating and ideating and creating a product, whether it's a tangible physical product or it's just like the idea of an app or a website. I think the danger for the creators in this case is that they've breathed that idea, they've really kind of matured that idea, it came to their mind and they really like kind of developed it, that they're so accustomed to it that at some point it creates a barrier between the idea that they have and who it's intended for and the users of those websites and apps, for instance. And unfortunately, that distance, that barrier that's created, that's often where there's going to be some gaps in the usability, if you will. And you might think that something you create, it's going to be amazing, and people will know it's going to be intuitive for everyone to use it. But you forget that yourself, you're very versed into it. It's your idea, so again, you had time to think about it. But for a user, all of a sudden having to pick up a phone and interact with an app, it might not be as intuitive. And so that's where I step in to make sure that again the many assumptions that are made as a product or a software or an experience is being developed, that those assumptions get validated. That really it's as intuitive as people think, that it's as easy to use as people think, and those sort of things. And I think it's really kind of what the job is about. It's really validating those assumptions in a way.
So I fully agree with that. There's been so many times when I've worked on a product and we've got like a big buy now button,
right?
And because that buy now button is next to some other text or whatever, people still won't click it. Or you've got this other beautiful feature that points you to like a section and they're like, I didn't see the buy now button, so we just moved on.
Right.
And it's hard because you want this like beautiful design versus this utilitarian sort of project. But with something like Walmart, you have such a wide range of audience as well. So you don't just have like some hip, cool 27-year-old that's like, oh, I've been using tech since I was 7. Right. You might have someone that's like, hey, I'm 87 and I can't go to the store, so I have to order from this thing. Right. And you guys just changed the UI layout on us, the user interface, and now I can't figure out how to use it.
That's you're absolutely right. There's no there's a group of users that might have similarities between them, but we're all individual. We all have either different sort of tech savviness to us, or different needs, different willingness to do things on our own or not. So you really kind of think of it, think outside the box, and then think against yourself often. And it's not always easy to think critically about something that you create. So again, that's kind of the perspective that we bring out there, like trying to bring that perspective of the customer itself to make sure they're being represented, even though they're not in a room when those experiences and those products and services are being created.
So, since you're talking about the website, we're talking about the app. Do you ever have to worry about how that app or website will then interact with how they go into the store? So
Yes.
let's say, let's say that I've got a grandma and she's like, I've got this app. Maybe I know there's a coupon on here, but I have to scan something to sort of find it. Like, do you have to role play and walk through that?
Yeah, that's actually kind of an area I focus more. I'm lucky enough to do that, and I love that part. So I have some colleagues who might be working on experiences that are solely digital, like they're thinking about the use of the app at home. Or people on the Walmart website at home making their order to be delivered. I focus more on the store experience, so I'm focusing on those part of the experience that could be digital, but that have an application in store as well. And so I love this particular aspect of what I do, where it's really like kind of when the digital world meets the physical world, so the use of the app, but in the store. I mean, this is often like it's quite sensitive in the experience, because there's often those handshake between I'm doing something on my phone and then the next step has to be in store talking to someone, and then maybe I need to do something on my app later again. So all those kind of handshake moments between the digital world and the physical world, in a way, it's as many kind of, it's like the seam of the experience, and there's that expression of breaking at the seam that I often kind of use when I present maybe like some report on some experience like this. So it's as many opportunities for an end-to-end experience to break at the seam when there is those handshake between something that's happening on the app and then the next step happen in the store, or vice versa. So yes, absolutely, that happens, and that's really kind of what makes that particular job and so interesting in this case. I mean, it even gets you like into question that feels sometimes absolutely philosophical, I swear, if you deep dive really going down into the psyche of people and what they think and why they think that way, like getting into those mental models. I mean, sometimes people will do something, they're in store physically, they're doing something on their phone, and they might be like adding an item to a cart, and at that point the cart is on their phone, but the item is right in front of them. So where are you at that point? Like, are you doing something digitally? Are you doing something in a store? I mean, it's like, it feels like, oh gosh, you're making it sound like complicated all of a sudden, but it's just makes it super interesting. And as I said, like you would kind of go down some rabbit holes sometimes. You'd think like, I would not have imagined people thinking that way about just like shopping in store on an app, but I find it fascinating.
Yeah, how do you handle with people with disabilities? Because when I was working at Nintendo, we had to really stick to some regulations because we were such a big website about regulations. I can only imagine with Walmart that you have to stick to those regulations really tightly.
Yes, and luckily enough, those are well integrated. So there's definitely some accessibility standard. They're called like WCAG. They're kind of a WCAG, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So you have different standard, A, double A, triple A. Company tends to kind of abide by at least the double A standard, which is kind of the kind of, you can go by the A standard, but it's not a great. I mean, it's really the bare minimum. You want to kind of go at least like double A. So we have kind of those guidelines that helps us, and then nowadays with accessibility being a lot more, like there's all sort of acts out there that kind of forces company to do that. So it's more integrated now into the design and the development itself. So like my colleagues who are actual designers, so doing the design, they use like patterns that are already built up for them. They will have been tested for those accessibility. So there is all sort of those. I mean, they're not really constrained. It's just best practices of design that are baked in the design tool themselves, so that you don't really have to really retest everything that you put out there every time, because that the color contrast that is being used, that is part of our color palettes, are already being created to pass those accessibility standards about contrast color. The same thing with the buttons, the size of the button, for instance, or those kind of things. So the basic need in that way, like putting some alt text for those reading screen type of things, making sure that when you create something, it can be tabbed through. So a lot of that gets kind of mandated from the get-go. So it gets baked in as soon as a prototype is created, in a way. So that helps a ton. Of course, I wish I could say we do diligently some actual testing with also participants with disability during our test pattern. We have a part-year group that's dedicated to this, so there is a prioritization that happens where those guys will probably put some focus on more so of certain experiences. But it's not something that I do on a daily basis. But we definitely try to kind of think through that, and again use all of those patterns that we have in the first place to make sure that we don't open the door for some basic accessibility issues that shouldn't occur anymore.
Yeah, it's a wild thing to try and think of, because it's I don't think many people realize how many people view sites like Walmart, Nintendo, that where the wide range of people that you have to be accessible for is huge.
Yes.
From people some people that might not have great eyesight. Well, there's people that only have a small part and they're using a Braille keyboard. There's people that have great sight but no hearing. So if there's a voice command version, you're like, the alt tags behind pictures, how they run. It's insane, all the stuff that you need for that.
Absolutely.
It's pretty incredible. Diego, I thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely.
I hope you like your drawing.
Yes, that's a lot of fun.
Awesome. So if you want, you can pop your email in the chat part just to the side here.
Right.
And I can take that and I'll send you a copy of this.
That'll be wonderful.
And if you want to write in your wife's podcast, I can put that in the link as well. I can find it and put it in the link.
Sure. Thanks, Matty. That's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Diego. Thank you very much for your insight.
All right. Bye-bye.
Catch you, mate.
Bye.